Hello and welcome to Teach Me School Stuff. In this video I'm going to show you how to do a very simple animation using audio and various moving parts, almost sort of in the style of, well, very much inspired by the style of Terry Gilliam. In this case I have an image of Donald Trump flying around in front of the White House, and his mouth is going to be timed to a Donald Trump speech that I got from the internet where he talks about building a wall. So let's just take a look at just the beginning of this animation that I've started putting together.
We're going to have strong, incredible border.
Okay, and then there'd probably be like the sound of bird pooping on his head or something like that, a screech of a hawk flying overhead, whatever. So what I want to do is show you how to put this together. So I've got, if we take a look at what I have here, I have an audio track, I have the birdie do. Then I have the various layers for my main asset, which is Donald Trump, and the body parts, and then the background layer. So now, one thing with regards to working with Flash is that when I go to my demo, which right now is blank, because I have that other project open, then I can access the assets from the library of that other project. So for those people that are very new to Flash, that's one of the great things about collecting things in the libraries of the projects you work on, is that this library over here that's full of things can now cross-communicate to the library of this other project so long as that first project is open. So the first trick, of course, in order to work with audio is getting the audio from somewhere. That speech by Donald Trump can easily be found on YouTube, whatever it is you're looking for. It could be any famous scene from a movie you want to animate, TV commercial, political speech, something even that you wrote yourself and you want to animate to. You can, so long as you have the MP3 or a WAV file on your computer, bring that into Flash. In my case, I found it on YouTube. I found a YouTube to YouTube to MP3 converter, downloaded it that way. From there, you go to File, Import to Library, and one of the options there would be to import that audio piece, and then it puts it in the library here. So I made a recording of me kind of speaking like Donald Trump, but I'm actually going to use the other one that's already in the other library. So let me open up that library and begin by building my actual scene. So I had a picture of the White House from that other project, which I drag onto the stage. Dragging onto the stage, the layer is locked, drag onto the stage. And this is way too big. And I run the risk of, if I zoom way out, you'll see the stage relative to the size of that picture of the White House. The stage is pretty small. So if I'm not careful, if I had Donald Trump over here, he wouldn't even appear in my animation, he'd be off the stage. So I'm going to use my free transform tool and scroll over this way a bit and shrink down my background so it fits the stage. It'll be something more like this. Okay, that's good enough. Now I can go like this again. Now I'm going to pause what I'm doing here, and I'm going to drop the other assets in, and we'll pick up where I left off. So I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so I'm back, and I've now added Trump's face. I have a layer underneath his face of just the black, and of course I have the jaw on top. So the mouth, the face over top of the mouth, and then the jaw, and of course the White House in the background. So I've got all those layers in there. I've got all the layers locked. Now I create a new layer, which is going to be the audio. And here's where you first of all have to make a decision. Are they going to start talking right away on the very first frame? Generally, that's not a good idea. It's better for your audience if you establish the character, and then after about a second or two of them being there, you can have them begin speaking. Of course, it really depends on what they're going to say and what other animations you might be able to apply to this. If this was a Terry Gilliam cartoon, probably I'd also animate the eyes, they'd shift around a little bit, and then he'd finally speak, or something to that effect. So if you don't want the audio to start right away on the first keyframe, then you could drop a keyframe in slightly later. So here I'm going to frame 17. I am at 12 frames per second because that's what CS3, which is what the computers I'm using in my classroom use. I know it's old, but at least it works. So I'm going to put a keyframe, a blank keyframe in here. And now into this blank keyframe, this is my demo project I'm working on, but I have the other project, the Talking Head project, open. That's where my audio is located. So with that blank keyframe, you just simply drag the audio straight onto the stage. And you'll notice, if you look very, very carefully, there's a thin purple line here. But when I click here, that line stretches out. Okay. So now, once the audio is in here, I want to be able to drag my playhead and hear it. Now, normally, the computers that my students work in, they default so that if I'm in the Properties window, so I've got this stage, this layer of the project open, not this stage, but this layer. Over here in my Properties window are some important buttons, one of which is this one here that says Sync Event. And what I want to have here is Stream. If I don't have Stream, then when I drag this around, I can't hear anything. Being able to hear this audio is very important. So if I switch this to Stream, I can hear the audio now. So now I can hear, and I can sort of see, I've got little bumps in the audio. I can kind of tell where the voice is and where it isn't based on the visual, but certainly based on the audio. Another setting I need to make sure I have open is in the Publish settings. I'm going to go to File, Publish Settings, and within the Flash, note here that my audio stream quality is very low, 16 kilobits per second. So you can change the setting of the audio quality. My recommendation is pick the maximum you can get, in this case 160 kilobits per second. And I'm going to do that for both. Otherwise, what's going to happen is when you export this video, the audio is going to sound like it's being spoken over like a really bad cell phone connection. So change that audio before you do much else. And then I click OK. So now I'm ready to start animating to this audio. So all I need to do is take my playhead and drag it up to the first word. So he says, we're starting right about here. So the top of the word is at about frame 27. So this is where, on my jaw layer now, I'm going to lock the audio layer. Jaw layer, I'm going to go here and insert a keyframe. And I'm going to drag the mouth down a little bit. In fact, it's a lot easier if I just use my cursor buttons. So we're, and then I'm actually going to zoom in because that also gives me a bit more control over what we're doing. So the word we're has to end about here, so I'm going to put a keyframe in and close the mouth. And then, 2 frames later, he's going to say going. And go is going to maybe, let's say, be a bit of a bigger word. So I'm going to insert a keyframe, open the mouth, close it up a little bit by inserting a keyframe, maybe to about here. And then right after it, another keyframe to close it up, going, maybe not quite completely closed. And have is a big open word. So I'm going to put a keyframe in here, and let's open his mouth nice and wide, insert keyframe, and close it. Now, let me just demonstrate this by testing this scene, and I think you should be able to get the idea. So we go to Control, Test Scene.
We're going to have strong, incredible...
Okay. And then it carries on after that. So let's see that again from the beginning. So there's that 1 second pause. Move his mouth over a little bit. Notice his mouth is slightly off. I'm just using the cursor button to fix it there. And at the very beginning, it can be there. Now, because this is a cartoon, you can actually play around and do extremes. You can even have his jaw fly off and spin around in the air and come back. The more you do that, the goofier you're going to make your subject matter appear. And that is a very Python-esque thing to do. So let's go back to Control, Test Scene. and so on. So that's how you add audio and then time the animations of your cartoons to that audio. At this point, there's no tweening involved because the movements of the mouth are so sudden that I don't really need tweening. Plus, that's just part of the aesthetic of this approach to animation. If I want the animation to be hand-drawn, like a real cartoon, for example, the best thing you can do for yourself is over in the library create a folder of essentially phonetic positions of the mouth so that you've got an M versus an E versus an O versus an F sound. There's images online that you can find that show you the basics of how to create mouth positions for the phonetic alphabet if you want to create a hand-drawn mouth instead of, in this case, a cutout mouth. So I hope that adds some new dimension to your animations. Till next time, see you later.